What exactly is sparring etiquette? Nobody seems to know, or more accurately, nobody can explain it. I can explain it. I've got some clips we should look at that illustrate some examples of good sparring etiquette and bad sparring etiquette, but I'm going to attempt to put sparring etiquette into words. There are 3 big reasons why a person might not understand what sparring etiquette actually is. The first is that we tend to refer to it like it's a collection of unwritten rules. And if you reduce the idea to a list of do's and don'ts, your understanding of sparring etiquette is going to be dangerously incomplete. That might not be your fault though, because the second big reason is that most content about sparring etiquette sucks. Hopefully this video doesn't. Most sparring etiquette content are posts from mediocre fighters of low emotional intelligence telling you what someone else did wrong. That's unhelpful. But the biggest reason that people don't understand sparring etiquette is the phrase, hit as hard as you want to be hit. And that's bullshit. It just is. It's idiotic. Hit as hard as you want to get hit is one of the dumbest things that people say in gyms, and they tell you that over and over and over again. From the very first time you go to sparring, even when you're dropping in and traveling and training with high-level fighters. It's a version of the golden rule, which is usually a bullshit rule anyway. I think this clip is a really great example. In this one, there's this guy, Joe, and he made this post about this spazzy new guy who's showing elbows and freaking out when he catches a kick and then hitting in the back of the head. And then Joe puts him down with a well-placed, well-timed spinning back kick. I think that's a fair shot, even if it wasn't in response to this guy's bullshit. But this guy here, there's a chance that he doesn't even know what's actually happening to him, let alone what he did wrong. So he may or may not have gotten a lesson on etiquette from this session. The rules are different in every gym. We're allowed to show elbows, but I totally understand why some people don't want to do that. If I catch a kick, I don't finish a sweep unless I'm sure that the other person is ready. And in some gyms, everybody sweeps every person every time in every class. And both ways are fine as long as we all know which way we're doing it. That's kind of the problem with unwritten rules. Somebody should probably write them down. As a matter of fact, we could do that in the comments. Let's compare notes. What sparring etiquette rules do you observe? Like, are there certain techniques that are frowned upon, like teeps to the knee? Are there rules about who's allowed to ask who for sparring? Or have you ever heard the rule, no punching in the clinch? Like, look at this guy. He gets mad because his sparring partner is punching him in the clinch and then snaps him like a towel. Uh-oh. I'm talking trash about people that can probably beat me up. It's about to get adversarial. This is the Blackberry Lemon pre-workout from Equip Foods. They're the sponsor of this video. I also use their Prime protein powder, which is a beef isolate powder. Do you want to know what's in each scoop? 4 ounces of grass-fed beef, cocoa powder, stevia extract, and that's it. Nothing else. And yes, when I first heard about beef protein powder, I felt weird about it. Don't get me wrong, I love beef. I eat beef every day, but I never wanted to feel like I was drinking beef. You don't. You just don't. It's fine. It's protein powder. The Prime protein from Equip Foods has no junk, no filler. I don't feel like I have with other protein powders. It has no dairy, no soy, no artificial flavors or preservatives. It's got no hormones, no antibiotics, no gluten. It's just protein powder. It's a complete protein powder. But the pre-workout, I do this in the morning. It's 150 milligrams of tea-derived caffeine, which is pretty normal, but it gives me that beta-alanine face tingle, which I have recently discovered I'm not the only guy that likes that. I want to feel it working. If you want me to describe like the energy level, I consider myself fairly tolerant to caffeine, and this gives me an even, pleasant amount of energy. I didn't feel weird. It felt useful, like a useful amount of energy without being like crazy. Go click the link in the description below. I enjoy the pre-workout and the protein immensely. It's really good. It's become a little important part of my morning. So here we have a piece of content about what someone else is doing wrong as it relates to sparring etiquette. Apparently, this guy thinks it's some sort of faux pas to punch in the clinch. I am sure that's an unwritten rule. If it is written somewhere, you need to erase that rule. It's a stupid rule. Anyway, this guy decides to intentionally and deliberately damage the tissue and bones in this man's neck. He posts about it on Instagram for sympathy likes, I don't know, and calls him a terrible training partner, then glares into the camera like, get a load of this fucking idiot. And it was in response to this guy touching his face with boxing gloves while the two were pretending to fight. LOL. Or you could say, oh, sorry, hey man, sorry to stop you there. Actually, you're not supposed to do that. Oh, why? Sure, I should explain that. And the reason why is, and then you'd have to insert a reason why. No, normally I would do that there, but I cannot fathom a reason. I can't even imagine one for someone else not to like punching in the clinch. What? But let's look at an example of good sparring etiquette. This might be the ultimate expression of sparring etiquette between equals. These guys are training specific attributes and they are agreeing on the parameters under which they train them. They've agreed to light punches that aren't really meant to land. They've agreed to harder kicks that you better block, but they're still careful with their targets and they like warn each other of impending danger. It is beautiful. You should go watch this entire clip. It's very short, but I want them to get all the views. So I'll link that down in the description below. Go watch that clip by itself. Watch it a couple times with the sound. It's phenomenal. Maybe you can't have a beautiful conversation like that using only your strikes. Maybe you can't work that out during the round. You might have to work that out the way that regular human beings do, and that's verbally. Either way, to have a productive conversation, you have to be honest, forthcoming, and you have to be speaking the same language. If one of those things is not true, you can't have a productive conversation. Very recently, my friend Jeff had a video become very popular of him sparring with this guy. And Jeff did the right thing when he made this content and didn't make it about what this guy was doing wrong. And this guy was doing lots of things wrong. This is not a great conversation. It's not honest. It's not productive. The guy's not being forthcoming. He has some kind of problem within himself or with Jeff. And Jeff is just trying to be polite and not make the problem worse. But he doesn't know what the problem is. They're not communicating well, and most sparring etiquette problems come up when there's a disparity in either size or skill. If you're very even, it's whatever, it'll probably work itself out. But when one guy is either way more experienced or way larger and more powerful than the other, that's when these things seem to pop up. When the disparity is experience or skill, when one person has been doing this a lot longer, is a lot better than the other, which I believe is what's going on in these clips, and there's an etiquette issue, whose responsibility do you think that is? Can you think of another type of conversation when there's an etiquette issue where someone has done something wrong and it's maybe the more experienced person's job to correct them? And the only way you know how to do it is by hurting them? Sometimes that's the answer, but that's the only way you know how to correct the behavior? Maybe you think that's not your responsibility, and hey, maybe it's not, but you're the one with the problem. So you beat the guy's ass and then walk away from him, and he has no idea why you're mad at him. What do you think he's gonna go on to do to his training partners in the future? I think this post is extremely honest and extremely vulnerable, and I think looking at it is very valuable. This fighter takes a spinning back kick, and he's in the weeks leading up to his fight. And in the post, he talks about what could have happened. He talks about how that kick makes him question what could happen to him in a fight. He could get caught with something like this. He's worried about he could have been injured in practice before the fight, and that would be terrible for him. Which, just as an aside to the dude that was like, not so hard, not so hard, they weren't, it wasn't. That's not the one that does it, dude. He pulled that one. It was just well timed, well placed, and your boy's feet were... I have personally witnessed and been a part of this exact thing a bunch of times. I got knocked out in sparring by a welterweight because of a spinning hook kick. He got mad and then head kicked me through my guard so hard that I bounced off the ground. And then started yelling and screaming about what could have happened. He could have got a cut. As a coach, I try to sequester guys during fight camp because there's always some issues a couple weeks out. And this post from Mike Davis is very, very insightful into where that anger and that insecurity comes from. You know, this is how he makes his living. If there's a problem, that it's going to be a big one. So if we call that a conversation, that conversation is just a misunderstanding, mostly due to one guy having a bad day and taking offense when none was offered. Sparring etiquette is not a set of rules. It's an agreement. If we spar, you have something that you're trying to get out of that round. I might be trying to get something completely different out of that round. We decide if we can both get some of what we want, and then we trade in minutes, in sweat, and sometimes in blood. We can agree that we're not bothered by things that lots of people would consider bad etiquette. We don't stop for low blows. If someone hits someone in the cup, you both better keep your hands up. In fact, it would be considered bad etiquette if you did stop to say, ooh, I'm sorry. I would yell at you. Have a conversation, make an agreement, and come back with something better than hit as hard as you want to get hit. You shouldn't do unto others as you would have them do unto you. You should do unto others what they would have done unto them. You should hit people as hard as they want to be hit. And even if you don't care about other people, this might blow your mind. You and I are not the same. We're different people. We have different capabilities and we have different needs. There's no rule that says we have to hit each other with the same intensity. The only real reason to train at a specific intensity is if that intensity is the thing that you're training. Asymmetrical training is the most productive training for general skill development. If you want a very clear example of what that looks like, look at this clip right here. The little guy is operating at a far higher intensity than the bigger guy. But the bigger guy is working on defending. He's working on not getting tricked. And the little guy is working on beating the shit out of the bigger guy, I guess. And he can, and they're fine. They're both learning. They're both safe. They're both getting what they need from the conversation, and they're having a good time. This conversation is like listening to a hilarious friend roast you and not taking it personally. So what would I call this? This is me trying to hit Sanchai as hard as I think he wants to be hit. And I think he's trying to do the same for me. And neither one of us needs a lot from this conversation. But we're both getting what we want. We're passing the time and enjoying each other's company. This conversation is just polite small talk, which is not only okay, it's okay to do that if you enjoy it. It can be memorable.
I see Mike. Let's go. I see Mike. I love that shirt, dog. Yes. Hey. Oh. Good thigh slap. Sweep the leg. Let's go.